Going to welcome Miss Nicolette and Araceli, who are two homeschool moms. Then the three of us are spread across the country. I understand that Nicolette is in California and Araceli's in Texas, and I'm near Chicago. So welcome both of you. And I believe the three of us have different weather today. We're snowy and slushy here, and probably you have an I've seen pictures about California that like you guys are in nice sunny.
Oh, it's sunny.
Oh my gosh.
It is 61, but it is sunny.
Do you live up north or
I
south?
live in Los Angeles, but we live close to the coast, so
Oh, that's nice.
it's not as hot, but it's definitely sunny, but it's been windy, so it has felt chillier than normal, but it's still, even me as a California person, I qualified it as chilly. I don't qualify it as cold.
And you live there all your life, right? Pretty much.
Yes, I've lived in Southern California my entire life.
Wow, that's amazing. And Araceli, I understand you're in Texas, right? Your weather's pretty nice down there.
And no, not this week.
Really?
It's been so windy. The wind has knocked out the electricity a few times. Last night, like I got scared at 3 o'clock in the morning because I heard like a big wind. I was like, oh my gosh, is that a tornado? Because we always get tornadoes over here. So I'm like, oh my
No.
gosh. Yeah. So today it's a little calmer. Right now it's pretty sunny, but it's still pretty chilly. Like you said, chilly to me. But it's supposed to freeze this weekend, so we'll see.
Yeah. But you guys got that bad weather probably 2 years ago, right? And I think it was colder than it was over here down there.
It was, and Texans, we're not used to the like Californians, not used to the
Mm-hmm.
cold. I'm from Chicago, that, but I've been here for over half my life now. So it was bad. Like we didn't have electricity for like 3 or 4 days. Yeah. And after that incident, we got solar panels because I was like, never again.
Oh,
It
thank goodness.
was terrible. Yeah, it was terrible. People like passed away because the heat
Yeah.
cold. It was so cold, and people didn't have heat. The elderly, it was bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gosh. Yeah, so hopefully you guys won't get that. And now that you have solar panels, it
Yeah.
should be better for you.
Yeah.
But
Oh, we prepared. I got propane. I got everything ready. I was like,
Good.
"Man."
Nice. It only takes one time.
Yeah, I only took that one time. That's it.
But I do want to thank you guys again for joining me on this channel to have a conversation about homeschooling and your experience, your story, why you did it, and how your children are thriving in this environment and what challenges you're having. So, Nicolette, I want to start with you. If you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and about your family, about who you're homeschooling, and we'll start from there.
Yeah. So my name is Nicolette, and we live in Los Angeles. I am a former educator of about 10 years. Currently, I'm going back to school for graphic design. I am also autistic. ADHD. We're very fortunate that they get to work from home. So we get to be our trio. My kid is almost 4, so I don't really count what we do as homeschool, but I'm very being an educator mindset. And I'm a big nature and science person. And we decided to go this route mostly because of my experience as a teacher. I had a pretty good schooling experience. However, my spouse is from Alabama originally. And so his schooling experience was awful, very traumatic, very negative. And so for him, when I brought up homeschooling before we had a kid, it was very much like, even like for me, the stereotypical of like, well, why do you want to homeschool? Like they're going to be the weird kid or they're not going to get socialized. And I'm like, but what was your school experience like? Like you were the weird kid and you didn't get socialized. And he's like, yeah, that's true. And I joined a lot of groups, and a lot of my teacher friends got out of teaching even before COVID, but especially after COVID. And a lot of them are homeschooling their kids, and a lot of their kids are in elementary to middle school. And so it was really encouraging to see parents decide to, especially after COVID, be like, I can do this. My kids are thriving at home and I enjoy spending more time with them. And so my kid is almost 4, but like their dad and me, they are hyperlexic. And so they started to read at about age 3. And so for me, I was pushed to be very academic, and like that's how you show your worth is through academia and through work. And so for me, I'm consciously doing not the opposite, but not going so hard into the academics. And so for me, that's what I really enjoy, is that I can see that my kid is reading, but instead of making them read X amount a day, or like now we're going to move on to chapter books, no more picture books, which I've had plenty of experience of parents wanting. It's just like, no, you're literally 3 years old. If you can read, that's so cool. Do you want to read? Do you not want to read? Okay, that's fine. So really the curiosity and the time aspect of homeschooling is what we love and what I love, and is what is keeping me going.
That's so cool. Awesome. How about you, Araceli? Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your homeschooling story, why you decided to homeschool?
Sure. Actually, we have a lot in common. I am also late diagnosed autistic and ADHD. And the only reason I found out is because my little one was diagnosed at not as early as I would have liked, but he was diagnosed officially at 5 years old. And he also has selective mutism. So he had a very hard, he was in Montessori school when he was about 4 years old. And he had a very hard time interacting because of selective mutism and because of his autism. And, the teachers would, say, he's such a good, child. Like he acts like literally in his evaluation, they put acts like an angel because he's such a rule follower. He's such a, he just wants to do the right thing, but they couldn't communicate with him. And so, like you, Nicolette, like thinking back at my schooling experience when I was little, I absolutely would have loved to be homeschooled because I feel like I was very bored in school, and nobody pushed me. And not, it wasn't like, my parents, didn't know, right? You don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just very
Mm-hmm.
bored. I was, like I didn't enjoy it. I would finish my work before a lot of the kids, and I didn't understand like why kids couldn't comprehend what they were teaching. And so that was like my experience. And because of that, like my high school years, like I didn't like going to school in high school because I was so bored. I was so just like fed up with the school. Like I was like, I'm done. Like just I don't even know how I graduated, to be honest with you. I would just show up for the test and I'll be like, okay, I'm done for the week. But I didn't want my son to have that same experience. I didn't want him to have a lack of resources. And I wanted really to be that pillar for him to say, let's see what you can learn and how you learn best, and let's implement different strategies so that you can thrive. And that's what we've been doing here at home. We've been doing several things that his psychologist is even like, oh my gosh, that is such a good idea. Like I never thought of that. And I was like, yeah, for example, like he had a hard time writing. So, for math, we started out with a whiteboard, magnetic whiteboard, and the numbers. And we would just, use that and we would add, and he didn't have to write anything. Of course, we would still work out the muscles, but, he felt more comfortable doing it. He wasn't felt pressure like, oh my gosh, I can't write the numbers. Like, because he knew that he had, struggles and all that. So this was like, a less way of him feeling less pressure and less self-conscious. So yeah, I mean, we love homeschooling. I've always loved the homeschooling movement ever since I have a 19-year-old too. So, and she was homeschooled for a little bit of her elementary years, and then she's a very social butterfly, so she wanted to go to school, and which was fine, but I do regret not homeschooling her. And I didn't know a lot of the things that I know now, like, Facebook groups now that we have the resources. and the co-ops that are available. I didn't know a lot of that. I was a very young mom, and so now it's like really like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I wish I was homeschooled. So that's been our journey thus far, and he absolutely loves it. He does not want to go to school. He says, no, I don't want to go to public school or any type of school. The noise also bothers him a lot. A lot of kids. He gets very irritated with a lot of kids. Like even at the movie theater, he's like, oh my gosh, these kids, like, why? He'll cover his ears, and which I totally get. So yeah, that's been our homeschooling journey and a little bit about us.
That's so cool. That's one of the reasons I would have never thought to homeschool, because I didn't know anything about it, and I decided to do it after my daughter completed first grade. But then I had a preschooler as well, and I knew her preschool class it was really crowded. I think it was like 25 students. It was, and she would come home like, mommy, this person hit me, and and this person took something away from me. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, so my husband and I would go talk to the teacher, and of course I don't think it was her fault all the time, because who can keep track of 25 kids in a playroom? It's like, so and then just her teacher would tell us that she was doing great, but then we noticed that she wasn't picking up on certain things. So I asked my husband, like, do you mind if I keep her here for a year? Because kindergarten isn't required in many states. So, but then I just decided to keep all of them here, and we never went back. And we found out like 2 years later that she was tested for dyslexia. And that was a challenge too, with us picking the same curriculum for all of my children, and one curriculum wasn't a good fit for the other child. So that even gets you to think, how can a school district pick a curriculum for everybody? Because so many children are so unique and they have different needs. And just like you described your son, both of your children, it's just, makes you think, right?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think they have enough resources, which is not the teacher's fault at all.
Mhm.
They just don't have enough support and resources to be able to cater to every single child's learning style.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. And I still try to find things that will keep her, busy, and she's already 13, and she's reading more confidently. And it's just as it required some tutoring and me working with her. So yeah, so far it's been a great fit for us as well. But as Latinas, are you guys like the only people in your family homeschooling? Is it like a taboo
Yep.
with everybody? Like, what are some of the comments that you hear?
So for me, my family, my mom dropped out of school in sixth grade.
Mhm.
She has dyscalculia as well as dyslexia, and is currently attempting to be diagnosed with autism as well, through me and my journey. And so it's cool to see my mom doing that. So for her, she loves it. She's so excited that V and I get to be together all the time, and that we take the time to learn and also just follow our kids' lead, instead of being like, these are the things we need to do. These are the steps we need to do them. If you don't do them, then you're showing me you're not paying attention or whatever. And it's just like, okay, you want to learn the alphabet. Let's do the alphabet. Oh, you don't want to do that for a month? That's fine. Um, my in-laws, my mother-in-law actually owns a daycare. And so for her, she's never said anything negative, but it's definitely like, did you know that she can already read? Did you know that she's holding her pen in this way instead of this way? Did you like making it, like extrapolating it to be like, oh my gosh, she's so much more than just a 3-year-old. And I'm like, no, she's still 3. And so like, but I also know for me, that's like, a triggering thing for me, is like, that was something that was praised for me, and that's what I wanted to continue to feed into. And so I'm just like, I play it very cool and casual. But I also still feel like my in-laws are very much like, well, they'll go to school eventually, they'll go to real school eventually. And we continue to do the things that we do at home and say the plans that we have. And, you know, if he wants to go to school one day, they want to go to school and try it out, that's totally fine. But it's been like, my husband's been incredibly supportive and like learning, and that's been great, because he sees how much V learns and how much we do together that he never had in school, that he would love to learn now. And that's great because we all just learn stuff together all the time. And so the fact that our family sees us together and learning together, and it's not stressful or anything, I think it's all been a positive experience for them to see us. So it's fun to be that model. I'm the only one in my family, including my younger brother, who's gone to college. So I also feel like with my dad's side of the family is very much like, well, you went to school, so you have to understand how important it is, and et cetera, et cetera. And so it's kind of nice to be rebellious and be like, yeah, I got that, but I can also homeschool too.
Yeah. How about you, Araceli? Are you the only one in your family that's homeschooling?
Yeah. I think it's still a very taboo subject in the Latino community. I think that our families came and they tried so hard to assimilate into this society. And I think that because of that, a lot of our culture has been lost. And now they think that that's the only way. Like, you have to assimilate, or you're not, you know, whatever enough, or you're not this, or
do X, Y, Z.
yes, exactly. You know, you need to do, you know, go to school, you need to, you know, do this, do that, and we need to succeed. And, you know, all that is really pushed upon the Latino community, which, you know, is good. You know, we're seeing a lot more Latinos with master's degrees and bachelor degrees. You know, that's amazing. I love that. But I think that homeschooling is still very much frowned upon in our community because they don't realize how much value it is, and how much, you know, this is going to help us with our, you know, children, you know, keeping them together into one little homeschool pod. You know, I know I try to, in where I am, find as many Latinos as possible and say, hey, let's have a play date, you know, let's do this. And I really try to just have him have a lot of you know, Latino friends and be around the culture. And, you know, his little soccer team is predominantly all Latino, and I absolutely love that. So I still think it's just, I think that the mindset of, you know, we came here to this country for a better life, and now you're doing this, you know. So
100%.
right, yeah. So yeah, it's still very frowned upon, and but I love it. I think that we are doing our kids the best thing possible. So
At least we're not going to ruin them, right? We're not going
right,
to.
yeah. And there's also a lot of racism and stuff that happens in schools. I know my daughter went through a lot of that, and it really hits on their self-esteem and say, no, I have to, you know, assimilate to this and, you know, do what they do instead of being proud of who they are and their culture. And so I don't want my son to lose that, because he's very proud of being Latino. He will scream it from the rooftops if he could. He's very proud.
Yeah, one of my son's friends says, being Mexican is our superpower, Roman.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah, it with me too. My mom didn't want me to do this. And I think, like you said, they come here and they think just the best of the schools that we go to. My school experience, you know, I'm glad I went, but I wish I would have been homeschooled. But I think that would have been a better fit than all the testing and everything that we're made to do here. And it's all for districts to get more funding and everything like that. It's just a strange way to evaluate teaching and education and progress. That's my opinion. And I always had slight test anxiety, but then I think when I got to start working in my career, like I was in banking and I did some investments, that there's some licenses that I had to obtain, and I was surprisingly, I passed some, so I just think it took my brain some time to get to where I need to get to. And, I even told my husband, if I would have just gotten my GED at 16, I would have just been happy. But, for me, it was mainly because I wanted to spend time with them. I knew I always wanted to, but, also it just seems like we have a timeline, like we reach the age of 5, and then we have to go through this routine of basically every day the same thing. Like you go somewhere, you
Mm-hmm.
come back, and then you do homework, and then you graduate from there. Then if you whatever you choose, a lot of people choose college, same thing, and then you go to work, and it's I just wanted more out of my life, and that me spending time with them. And I also discovered that I really love education. I love it. I just didn't like the school, the brick and mortar school. And I'm learning a lot with them as well. I love going to museums and exploring and hiking and everything that has to go learning. I just don't think the classroom setting was the right fit for me.
I agree. I
Yeah.
think they can learn a lot more in the real world than they do in a brick and mortar school. They learn a lot of life skills and to be around diverse people.
Yeah. Did you like school, right? You were a pretty good, pretty fast learner, right, Nicolette?
I was, but I also found the same thing of like, I felt like I knew it already. Like it wasn't challenging and it was like, okay, you finished and that's great. Now you're done, but we can't move on until everyone else is finished. Or also it's like, we're finished with that. We're not doing that anymore. We're moving on to something else. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. We're moving on to something else because we need to teach to the test. And I also feel like what both of you touched on is like representation. And even if our class is full of people who look like us, the curriculum is not even remotely reflecting us, if not just like our traumatic history in California or wherever state we're in, and not the global aspect of it. Like my family didn't teach me Spanish because they wanted to help me assimilate, because they knew when they spoke Spanish in public, they are yelled at, they're encouraged not to, they get, looks from people. And so they didn't want that for me. But then I couldn't communicate with especially the elders who didn't speak English in my family. And so those ties can like never be together if we can't communicate in that way. And so like my kid is learning way more Spanish at, almost the age of 4 than I did by that time, even by the time I was like 10 or a teenager. And it's so like being able to give them and show them our cultures and all the different ways, and even instill not like a top down like we're doing this and we need to learn this because it's important for you to know. It's just like I am introducing these to you, and if you like them, that's amazing, we can go deeper on them, and if they don't really click, that's fine. I can continue to talk about them without feeling like you're not going to get it. Oh no, what am I going to do? Like, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong with you? It's just like I can continue to teach the days of the week in Spanish or say nature words in Spanish and in English. And it doesn't need to be like an all or nothing situation. It's just for exposure and culture and sharing. And like not everything needs to be like vital or critical to, let alone to like memorize it. But it's just like, what do you relate to? And I also feel like as children in Latino culture, a lot of it is like chancla culture, as well as like children should be, seen and not heard. And therefore, like homeschooling, let alone like child led homeschooling, is like, your child doesn't know anything. Why are you listening to them? And I'm like, but like they are becoming a person, and what they're interested in is how they're going to learn. But when they didn't grow up that way, like they grew up with even more assimilation and like force of things than we did. And so it's like for them, there is no other way besides being forced to do something. And it's just, and which is so unfortunate. And I wish that we could, like, I think we are, like, by being the models. even though we are younger and therefore maybe taken less seriously by the elders in our community. I still think it's important that we are doing what we're doing because we're doing it for us as well as our children, and therefore our children, our children's children, or just their generation in general. I think that's important.
So do you consider yourself like an unschooling family? Does he?
Yes, I love the unschooling movement. I've also got experience as an outdoor teacher, so we do a lot of outdoor stuff. But I love the unschool movement, especially as a neurodivergent person and loving neurodivergent kids and working with them when I was a teacher. Like, if you just find out what that kid's like, I had a kid who he hates reading, he hates writing, he doesn't like spelling. How do I get him to like this stuff? Like, he needs to do it. And I asked him what music he liked, and he liked rap. And so we talked about different rappers and why he liked certain songs and what he liked about them. And then he said that he wanted to learn how to do that. And I was like, that's awesome. And so like he came up with his own rapper name, and so that's how he signed all of his poems that he did. And so he was writing in like 2 weeks, but it's not because like, well, we need to write this and we need to write this. It was like, okay, so like, what are you thinking about today? What are you feeling about today? Okay, like let's take that word. What other words do you want it to rhyme? Like, what do you want? And just giving him that power of like, you already know this stuff. I can help you like with other words or expand upon it or something, or be that like third eye of like, this part doesn't make sense to me. Like, can you explain it? And then they can be like, oh, this is what I meant. Okay, I'm going to change it to this. So that way you can understand it. But it's never that pressure of like, I am the authority. It's just like, oh, that's like just giving it to the kid of like, that's so cool that you know that. I'm so excited for you. Like, cause you're teaching me something. And I feel like that's the way as like humans in general, like we just wanted to be treated competently and that we have things to share. And children of all ages, I feel like deserve to feel that feeling, especially from the adult in their lives.
Yeah, and your child already reads anyway, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, but I also like don't want to take like a laissez-faire approach to when because parents like will be like, oh my God, your kid's reading. As
Mhm.
in like they're worried that my kid's not reading. So what does that mean about me? And so I'm just like, yeah, like me, like their dad and I, we both read really early. So I'm just trying to make it like a casual, like it's genetic. No. Like we're not doing anything special. We're not forcing it. It's fine. And even like then you have parents who will ask me like, well, how do I get my kid to read, or my kid, they don't like reading. And I'm like, why do you think your kid needs to like reading right now? And they're like, well, you said that your kid reads. I'm like, my kid likes reading. Like they are different and they're allowed to be who they are. We were at a dance class. It was so hard for me to hear. It was just like flashbacks to my childhood. But this mom had taken their kid to dance class because their friend was in it. And the friend had been in dance, like, so this was in their schedule. They knew the teacher, they knew the moves, no anxiety, nothing. This was like their safe place. It's this kid's like second time going, and the mom was just kept pushing of like, why don't you do this, why don't you go join them, why don't you go do this? And just like, oh, you can do it. Like you can just feel the frustration because their kid isn't doing what the other kid's doing. And like they got to a point where she just pulled her kid out and they were just watching the class, and it was a lot of like, so do you want to do this, do you not want to do this? And to the point she even said like, why aren't you more outgoing like the ex-friend? And I was like, why are you comparing this child? like she's right there, she's listening to you, like she is who she is, and maybe she'll like dance, but being like the constant forcing of it is like, this isn't fun even if I did like dance. And it's just like, if just adults or caregivers could just take a step back and like ask questions, like, do you want to do this? And not being like, not asking with the sense of like, okay, well, you said you don't want to do it, and so now we're never coming back type of deal. And it's just like, it's okay for them to say no, or that they don't know, or that they're figuring it out, and just supporting them through that. Like, that's it.
Well, that's kind of cool. What do you have like a certain style of homeschooling, Araceli?
Um, Not a certain style, just like Nicolette. It's very child led, just like she said. Like my little one loves math. He likes math, he likes science, anything in that, realm, he absolutely loves, but he struggles in reading, which is fine. I never pressured him. I never, I did get him a tutor, so he has tutoring every single week. And so it was never a pressure thing because I never wanted him to be like, oh my gosh, I can't read, like, because kids know and they feel it, and they know that when they do something wrong, they know. And, which is not, it's not wrong to not read, but they know that they can't do it. And I never wanted him to feel that way. So we just took it slow, and just language in general is very difficult for him because he did have selective mutism. He didn't start talking until he was 5. So like forming sentences when he was like, he spoke little words here and there, but he didn't start forming sentences until he was 5. So language is very difficult for him. So I knew that it was going to take more time for him to grasp reading and grasp the sounds of the letters and phonics and all that. So and now he's getting so much better. And we don't have to read like boring old books. I actually bought him a comic because he I figured he likes the Avenger movies and all that. So I was like, let's try comics. So I got him a book that's like a comic. I forgot what it's called, something about cats, because he loves cats. He absolutely loves cats. So it's like this cat comic book.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so
Really quick, I remember he was in the Spanish class with his kitty, and then my son went and was looking for his cat as well. I'm sorry, go.
he loves cats. He like carts them around, and our cats are so easygoing, thankfully, right? They're just like, okay, and there he goes with the cat in his arm. And so I figured, he loves cats. This is the cat comic book, so why not? And he's been reading it fine, and he's doing so much better. But never the pressure. Just like Nicolette, I just let him lead the way. And he thrives. Okay, if you don't want to do math, if I see he's struggling, he's like, oh, like, just like mentally he doesn't want to do it. Like, I'm not going to force him to do it because that's not going to help him in any sort of way learn it. It's just going to be like a meltdown waiting to happen. So I'm like, okay, you don't want to do math today, fine, we can do science, we can do I don't know, learn about history, whatever you want to do. Let's watch a history about he likes learning about the Mayans and the Aztecs, and he loves all that. So I just like Nicolette, just let him lead the way. And kids know, and they know what they love and they know what they don't love. And sometimes they are going to have to learn things that they don't love, but never pressure, and very easy. And just let's ease into it. If you struggle with it, that's fine, no pressure. Let's just do it at your own pace.
Well, it just reminds me I have 2 girls, and I really wanted them to learn I made them join the Mexican ballet group. They gave me 2 years, and after the 3rd year, it was more stress for me taking them to practice and doing. I'm like, why am I putting myself through this, and why am I putting them through this? And it's just all negative, and it's not. And I wanted them to do it, and I tried to bribe them. I said, look, give me a year more. You're gonna get a phone. You're gonna get this. It doesn't work. It well, for me, it didn't work. It didn't work, and it's me and myself as a parent, I learned from that as well. And sometimes I think we have to let them be bored as well, because right now we did. My husband asked me, like, did you guys do schoolwork? He really gets worried about that. And I said, well, no, I didn't bring the books out or anything. But then they're right now upstairs practicing their guitar and one the ukulele, their own. So, and that's what they do when they're bored. They get sick of the phone, so they just pick up their instrument. And I never told them, you bet study music or anything. That all came out of them, and I have no clue where it came out of, because I'm not. I love music, a lot of genres, but I I don't play an instrument. So so they were the ones that asked my husband, can I have a acoustic guitar? Can I have a an electric guitar? And the other ones, can I have the ukulele? And then my oldest started, you know, she's trying to form a band. She's 15. So she's been she tells me I'm jamming with my friends, you know, every, you know, she'll tell me when and they're coming over. So
Fun.
yeah, and yeah, she that's all on them. And I never told her to do that. And she played a solo concert in Christmas with her electric guitar. I'm like, that's something I would
That's
never do.
amazing.
Yeah, you know, I never even told her do that, you know, but you know, then you know, I asked her, what do you want to do? She's like, I want to be a musician when I grow up. We'll see. I will see. We whatever she decides, but yeah, but it's amazing listening to all of your stories about how, you know, the kids, you kind of, they guide you to learn. When I started homeschooling, I made the mistake because I had just came out of I withdrew them from school. We had the summer, and then right away I took the books out and I try to emulate what they do in school. And I think that was a mistake because it just burns you out a lot, you know, because you have so much to do, and then on top of that, you know, try to do what teachers do at home. I mean, Nicolette, you said you have friends that that left the teaching career and left their career in teaching and now they homeschool. Do you see some teachers who are unschoolers or are doing something different than they were doing?
Oh yeah, I feel like most of them are unschoolers. A lot of them have like they kind of do like what I do, is in like I know that I have, or I know where to go to find resources that are academic that we can explain, and like ID plants and stuff like that. But like they definitely will use that support when it is asked for by that kid. Like it like my kid loves dance. I'm not a dancer, spouse is not a dancer, loves dance. And so I'm like, all right, let's find some ballet videos and some jazz videos. They like ballet. That's what they really like. And so it's like, okay, well, we can learn together about that. And a lot of my homeschool friends are like, one was a public defender, their spouse is an architect, and their kids, like one of them wants to be a musician, one of them is currently in a costume design, and that's what they like to do. And so it's amazing to have just kids be able to find their own passions. Like if you give them the time, especially when they're not in school, like a full-time job, like there is that time to dabble in things, and without the pressure of like, oh, you like this, well now we're going to go to classes once a week and you got to do it, and then you're going to have a performance, and it's like, man, I just liked playing the guitar, like I didn't want to make this a whole thing. And so I feel like a lot of times, like it's okay to not do something and it's okay to try something. And I feel like a lot of my teacher friends, former teacher friends, like they have just seen so many kids, including themselves, just burn out from just the constant being told what to do and when to do it and how to do it, that in their home life especially, they're like, no, I don't want that life for me, and I definitely don't want to like emulate that at home. This is home, it's my safe place, I don't want to do that. And so it's been really, but it's also like cool seeing those like growth edges of them, because like they'll ask questions of like, hey, do you like test your kids, do you ask them to like write you an essay after they've read a book, or, and because like they're just like, how do I know that they're learning? But we can all remind each other that like, well, are they like doing more than they did the last time, or like when you started this, like, oh yeah, of course. It's like, okay, there's your answer. And it's like you could talk to them about the book, maybe you read the book and then you have more specific questions to ask them. And so it's cool to see how them as teachers have adapted, but also they get to be more of themselves. I think like for me, when I left teaching, I was middle school and then I taught kindergarten and first grade. And so it's like every subject you are teaching. And so I like learning all of the things. It's great. It's fine. But when I left that, I really found that I really love science, and especially I really love biology. And so my kid gets to see me get excited about science and biology and plants and what the plants do and where they grow. And that's what I'm using my free time for. And so they get to see that model of, they know a lot about plants, but it's not their favorite thing. But it's just cool to see that because I'm passionate about something, they now know about it and can use that idea of passion for what they're passionate about. And I think a lot of my teacher friends have found, like, I have teacher friends that are into like singing now. They've joined a chorus and that's their own thing. And none of their kids sing, or but they're so excited to watch their parent go and sing. And so it just gives that like familial opportunities and more relationships of getting to know each other as people and not just like child and adult, child and parent. And that's been really cool. And it makes me really happy for all of my former teacher friends and current teacher friends.
That's really cool. But you know, like like Araceli, you said your son, you also wrote a book, Araceli, which I would love for you to talk about. Because I want to offer also encouragement to parents who have children with learning differences and they feel that they can't homeschool because maybe their child, maybe they have an IEP, maybe they have somebody that they're working with. I know that for dyslexia, my local district wasn't able to help me because they don't have somebody certified to help somebody who is dyslexic. You know, with when my daughter was struggling reading, my husband and I tried everything. He would reserve a room in the library. He would buy different books. And a lot of the things we were doing weren't working, the phonics, and we have so many things until we actually got her tested and she has her own tutor. But what advice would you give them, Araceli, especially you who also who also wants to be an encouragement for parents who are Latinos who probably lack these resources or lack the support from other Latinos, you know, who have children with learning differences. Like, what would you tell them if they feel that they can't homeschool or they don't have the qualifications to do it?
I would say break the mold,
Mhm.
break the stigma, break because you may think that you don't have the qualifications, but you've lived life, you've done, you know, so many things up to, you know, when you had kids. And I think kids, like we've been saying, learn more about life in homeschool than, and like, you know, they learn more about life skills than in school, which is, in hindsight, it's going to help them, you know, like most people, they don't know about finances, they don't know about business skills, they don't know about you know, whatever. When they come out of high school, they're just kind of like, now what? And so I would say, you know, don't think that you don't know, because you do know. You've lived life and your child is going to learn from you. And, you know, the more resources that you seek out, like from your group, Latinos Homeschooling, I've learned so much from that group and so many different things that I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. You know, like I want to do that. So, you know, so you got resources in your community. And one great place to start is Latinos Homeschooling, if you ask me, because, you know, you meet other Latino moms and, you know, and dads, because there's, you know, dads in there as well that homeschool, and you know, we ask each other questions, and you see, you know, the feed on in the group, and they're just like, hey, do you guys know this? Do you guys know where I can find this? And so, you know, it's a really good resource, that Facebook group, because it's going to help them, you know, start out and don't feel pressure to do like the curriculum like they do in school, because that obviously is not working for your child if they're not happy and, you know, they're stressed out. It's not working for your child. So, you know, just take, you know, a step back and say, okay, what do you like? What do I see that you're so passionate about? And every child is different, and every child is going to have a different passion. And so I would say, just don't think that you can't, because you can, and have confidence in yourself, and you know, you're learning, and always, you know, groups like Latinos Homeschooling is a great resource for Latino parents to begin homeschooling and begin breaking that mold and begin, breaking that negative stigma, and, your child's going to thrive. So that's what I would tell someone that's just beginning.
Yeah. How about you, Nicolette? What advice would you give another Latina mom?
To especially Latinos doing this for the first time is to just lead with curiosity, like what your kid is curious about, and even for things that come up for you, like if you feel like you don't know, or it makes you anxious that your kid is 5 and not speaking as much or not reading as much or isn't interested in what other kids are doing, is just like, why do you feel worried about that? Like without any judgment, is just like I'm feeling this feeling and I wonder where that's coming from. And like you don't need to find out the reason, and you just wonder about it instead of assigning it. Like I feel like in my childhood it was a lot of like black and white thinking, and it's just like it could just be a feeling that you feel, and that's fine. um and like just being able to lead with curiosity enables you to like not take things personally, or as like this is my fault or my parents' fault or how I was raised fault. Like it doesn't need to be a thing. Like it's just a curiosity thing. And I feel like that makes like the stepping back a lot more intuitive, is because instead of wanting to like label something or assign something to what's happening, it's just like, I wonder where that's coming from. Like, I wonder why. And it also helps your kid like understand, like with you modeling that, of like when they feel that feeling or when they wonder something, it's a state of like, I wonder why I feel this fizzy feeling before I go out and do something new. It's just like, I wonder why. And instead of being like, oh no, I'm feeling like bad, I don't want to do this, I'm not going to be good at it, I can't do it. And it's also just like, oh, I wonder why you feel like you can't do it. And just being able to start that conversation, I feel like being able to be curious leads to those questions and those conversations in a way that allows the kid and the adult to just like wonder together. And I feel like that's a really great space to be with your kid. In my experience with my parents, is that like instead of being told what to do or what to think, if I was just like heard and just listened to, like I didn't need anything solved, I just wanted to be heard. And instead of anything like being assigned to what I'm feeling, it's just like I just wish someone would just be there and wonder with me and just be curious about, I see that you're feeling that, I wonder why.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice. And Araceli, can you tell us a little bit about your book that you wrote?
Yeah, sure. So I did write a book. It's called Anna and Johnny are, well, it's in Spanish too. What is autism, or qué es el autismo? I have it in English and Spanish. And I wrote it because I feel like a lot of kids, parents don't talk to them about differences, and they don't talk to them about, neurodivergent, kids. And so a lot of neurodivergent kids are, exiled, like, oh, don't talk to him, he's a little weird, he does this, why is he doing that? And so I wrote it so that parents can read it to their kid and they can say, okay, it's actually about my son. And so his name is Johnny, or Yanni. And it talks about like his struggles, and what just because he has a little bit of difficulty processing things doesn't mean that he isn't a great kid, and he isn't bright, and he isn't fun. And it encourages kids to say, oh, okay. It talks about his sister helping him figure out, how to play a game if he doesn't understand. She helps him, and then, they have fun together and they play together. And just because, a child is neurodivergent doesn't mean that you can't play with them and, invite them to play, because you never know, like, they might be your best friend tomorrow. So I really wrote it for him. And so, yeah, that's basically it. I wanted other kids to kind of understand, that neurodivergent kids, they're still fun.
Where can we find the book?
It's on Amazon, and I'll give you the link and you can post it on, your YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah,
and the little caption, I'll give you the link.
yeah, that would be great. And that, and I'm glad you say that about, because usually kids don't want to play with somebody if they're a little different, and
Mhm.
this just encourages everybody. It's really important to teach compassion as well.
Right.
And like one of you mentioned about life skills, also another important life skill that the kids need to learn now is really how to handle their emotions, how to express themselves, because I think that, with so many things going on, it's so important to be able to teach this as well, to kind of have a full circle of what we need to do, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. What I use with my son is Red Panda. I don't know if you guys seen that Disney movie, or is
Yeah,
it
oh,
Pixar?
my son loves
Yeah,
it.
Red Panda, when she like gets like, overstimulated and just like turned into the panda, and then she's like, okay, calm, calm, and she goes back to normal. So I'm like, oh, are we being a red panda right now? And so he like recognizes that, and it's like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay, calm, calm. And so it kind of helps him with his emotional regulation, and he really thinks it's fun. He loves that movie. So
And it's actually gonna come out in theaters, I think, this weekend, because they were that one in Soul. I don't know if you guys, I love Soul. Soul. Did you guys
yeah,
see it?
yeah, I've seen it.
My
I
kids
like
think it's boring. My husband thinks it's so boring. I really like it, but it's supposed to be out in the theaters this weekend. I think
playing.
the ones that were, I guess, we saw during the COVID shutdown. I can't believe it's been 4 years. Can you guys believe it? 4 years since 2020.
My child was born March 31st, 2020. I
That's
was
really,
still teaching,
really.
and yeah, I was still teaching. I remember like it happening, of being like, okay, so we're gonna go, like we're gonna be gone for the next week, and I had like 2 more weeks until my leave. Um and I remember telling my a principal, like, don't worry, we'll be back after spring break. It's not gonna be a big deal. And then little did I know is like I'm having to teach my older co-teacher, as well as the teacher who's like replacing me, how to use Google Classroom, and like what we're gonna do now, and how to make sure everyone's connected. Luckily my husband was able to go with me to the hospital, which was amazing. But yeah, it was a very intense time. Like, I can't believe my kid's almost 4, but I'm like, oh, that also means it's been 4 years since COVID started, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is insane.
And he won't even know that it happened. He was born during that time. And yeah,
Yes, exactly,
it's
exactly.
crazy that it went, I can't believe time just flies. This morning I woke up like it's 2024. Like that means 4 years ago is when we started hearing the news about China, about this.
Exactly.
It's so crazy. Um,
Yeah, it's surreal.
Years. That's crazy. It seems like just yesterday we were shut down.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
And actually that's when Latinos homeschooling started thriving because of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because, we were, I started the group, actually a local meetup group here in Chicago, because when we first started homeschool, it was kind of like a culture clash. I feel so bad for my kids. Like I pulled them out of school, they finished the school year, but then right away I started going to, I was really worried about them getting behind about it, like their curriculum. I said, okay, we're gonna bam, let's get the books and let's go to almost every meetup. And a lot of them weren't a good fit, probably, 8 out of 9, 8 out of 10 weren't a good fit. And there weren't anybody who looked like us there. And my kids just felt so uncomfortable. It took us a while to find good community. And when I started the group, I said, there has to be other Latinos who are homeschooling around here. And I would see a Latino name in any like meetup, and I would message them, and and I like, let's start a group, and let's do this. And so we were meeting consistently, like 4 families here in Chicago, informally. We weren't a co-op. We were thinking about doing that. We were thinking of just focusing on STEM. And we did do a few STEM activities in person. And then the group started getting bigger online, and people before COVID were joining it from other parts of the country. And we would post pictures, and they would say, that's so cool that you guys are doing that. And then COVID hit, and then the group just kind of exploded, and everybody was asking how to homeschool. And that's when me and some of the moms
Mhm.
we were meeting with, uh, we decided to do a couple webinars. And then I was getting messages from other leaders throughout the country, and it's amazing. I'm grateful for it. I just really, since I was shut down, I just started dedicating all my time to the group. So it's crazy how the pandemic got us all close together in a community online where we're all getting to know each other. You know, I mean, we probably would have found each other, but it wouldn't have been as close knit as had COVID not happened. But I'm grateful to have met both.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and
Yes.
to find all these really talented moms out there that are so passionate about education, because a lot of times our community has there's a stereotype that we don't care about education,
Yeah.
or things like that. But I mean, just like you, I mean, at a city, you have like 3 or 4 hats, I mean, that you wear, and you're author, realtor. There's just so much that you do, and Nicolette, your passion for being outside and everything is just amazing. And I want to find out more about that, because I would like to have an episode about just gardening and growing your own food, because that is just so important. And one
Yeah,
of the
that was
ones
really good.
I'm friends with does that, is like all the time grows most of her food, and that's an important lesson to teach our children as well.
I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
I want
It's
to talk. Do you live like in the country, Nicolette, where you can
I grew up in the country, grew up on a ranch. So we had like horses and cows. And so it is my dream to get back to that homesteading life. But my parents were divorced, so I also grew up in Santa Clarita, which is very suburban. And my step grandpa, he had a big backyard, and we always had fruit trees and strawberries growing. And my grandma would always make mint tea from the mint in the backyard. So it was just something that was always a part of my life. It was never like, you know, like a big thing, like we all need to do this or anything. It was just something that was casually just around. And as I moved to Los Angeles for school and work and everything, it's just like that part was just like cut off. Um, like I've only lived in apartments for the last 10 years. But even now, like I started actually with orchids at like Lowe's in the clearance section, the ones that are like not flowering and like dying anymore, and they're like $1. And so I was like, I'll start doing this. And it was so like healing to just take care of this plant. And it only flowers like once a year, but those flowers can last for months. And so you really get to see like all of your care physically in front of you. And then it expanded to just like having more plants and learning more about plants. But now that we have a balcony, and then I helped start an outdoor co-op in Redondo Beach, and I got really into native plants. And so that is a huge passion of mine, is educating about native plants and your native ecologies and your biomes, and making it accessible for kids and adults. Because I still have so many adults. Like I went to my kids' co-op the other day, and I had a kid, like the kids know me for being the plant person and the bug person, and I love it. I love that title. And I had a kid be like, "Hey, we found this thing in the ground, but it's not a worm." And I said, "Okay, I noticed you're not bringing it to me." So in my mind, I already knew that it was a grub, because I was like, grubs are the ones, like they look how they sound, and I said it was a grub. And so these kids are like, "Well, what's a grub?" And I said, "Well, do you remember those green beetles that were flying around? Those fig beetles? Well, they lay eggs in the dirt." And they're like, "Oh, this is from the eggs of the beetles?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then they're connecting the dots. "This is gonna turn into a beetle?" I'm like, "Yeah, it will." And so they get so excited, and then they feel like it's okay to hold it, because they're like, "Oh, I know what this is gonna be. Like it feels safe. It's not scary anymore." And I was like, "Yeah, you just, you be gentle with them and make sure to put them back in their home so they can turn into a beetle." And then I had a parent ask me like, "How do you know so much about bugs?" And I was like, I don't know. And like it's the same reason why it's just like colloquial knowledge that a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. Like, it's not weird if someone knows that. And so it's just like, that's just been a really big passion for me. But it also has led me to like the indigenous people of the West Coast specifically as well. Like, I grew up on Chumash land, and being able to be a part of that community and learn from them has been amazing.
Yeah.
I am a Mesa, what is the word? I can't think of the word right now, but MESA is the Multilingual Exchange Sustainable Agriculture Fellowship, where people from all around the world learn from other people all around the world about like kind of like homesteading life, but more about like everything, like why native plants are important, and like certain ways of like, we learned from one amazing person at the Santa Monica Mountain Fund, and he taught us about like his native plants and how they are like establishing a native plant groups again in like wild areas, or also on people's like private land. And that was amazing to learn from him, like, because he shared his journey of how he was also separated from his culture, and plants were the thing that brought him back, and he now is also in Azteca a danza, and so like that's amazing. And it's just to see all these people like connect to their roots again from literal plants is so amazing. And I just love learning the stories and the names that people have for these plants, and like why these plants are here and what they're used for. But also it just makes you just feel like everything is just so connected, and everything is so systematic. And everything like this helps this, and this helps this, and like even my kid will know like, oh, I need to put, there's mushrooms growing, that means the soil is really healthy. And then most of me, it's like, oh, there must be like decomposing wood in the soil, and like just understanding like the beginning and end like doesn't really have a beginning and an end. I feel like is such a huge life lesson to learn, that is so natural for kids because they're just so interested in it. But I really find, especially living in the city, nature, especially like you don't want to touch whatever's on the floor. But like one experience that made my heart so sad was my kid was sharing a pine cone with another kid they met at the park. Um, and that kid just instantly was like, nope, I'm not touching that. And my kid was so sad. They're like, no, don't drop it, I'm sharing it with you, I'm trying to share the pine cone with you. And they came to me running and so sad, and I said, I was like, some people like they think nature is dirty and they don't want to touch it, they don't know what it is, they don't want to touch it. And I was like, people have different rules and different beliefs. Like if you understand that you were trying to share and do something good, then you were trying to share and do something good. And you can try to explain that, but you're two, so I understand. But it's just being able to like lead with curiosity, like, that tree is really big, I wonder what it is, I wonder what lives up in there. And it leads you to more questions, which I love.
That's really good. An outdoor co-op. That's amazing. So you guys meet all the time outside.
Yes, it's all weathers unless there's like lightning or like any, extreme, or like fires sometimes, like for smoke in the air or anything. But yeah, we meet all year. We meet in like the tiniest nature reserve. It's in Wilderness Park, and we have connections with the ecologist there, and so we've done like work with him, and the kids got to learn like the invasive plants there, and what we can pull and what we can't pull. And it was a lot of radishes, and so they learned that they did not like the taste of raw radish, but we cooked it for them and made different things for them. But you can use the flowers for like printing, and they loved that. And every Wednesday the reserve is closed for irrigation and like whatever they need to do. And so that's when they go out into the community. We'll go to the beach, we'll go to museums, we'll go to the library, we'll go to another park. They finally established a community garden, so they will volunteer and do with the community garden. And so I really also love popular and folk education. So just like learning from other people in your community and what they do and how they help the community. And so that's just something of like, you meet older people of all different ages and walks of life and what they like to do and why they want to help the community. And this is how they do it. It just makes things more concrete of like how things work and how the community works together and all the different ways you can help your community. That's not like a full-time job. It makes things so much more expansive, which I found like the kids love it. They all love it, and they love it all for different reasons. Some is just, I just love that I can be outside and not do any work. And other ones are just like, I really love learning about the plants. Or it's just like, I love that I can learn about whatever I want. And so it's so cool that they all come to the same place, that they all have their own reasons for coming back.
That's amazing, to be able to meet outside. I think there's even schools, even during the winter, that over here in the cold, that still meet outside, but that's really cool. Do you, my co-op, we meet inside. Do you guys have a co-op, that you belong to, Araceli?
We actually just learned one because I couldn't find one that aligned with our values. There's a lot of very religious co-ops
Yeah.
around here, you know, because it's
Mhm.
South. So, and we are not religious. I just want my kids to be good human beings, right? I just want them to do good for humanity and be kind, and you know, if you know, one day, and this is what I tell my son because he said he's going to be a billionaire. So, but I tell him, you know, well, you know, the more places you go, the more you learn, and the more people you help. You always have to help people, and I really want to instill that in him, so that, you know, if he does become a billionaire, which I believe him, you know, like that's what he's going to do, you know, great. But you also have to help your community. You have to help other people. You have to help, you know, other Latinos, make scholarships, blah, blah. And so I talked to him about that a lot. But there is a co-op that actually just formed, and we're going to be starting at the end of the month, and it's a secular co-op, which I'm so excited about. And they're gonna, you know, right now they just have history, banned books club, and some they have art class, but they have other classes for older kids. But he's just, you know, he's 9, so he can't take those classes yet. But yeah, and they said that hopefully, you know, next semester they're going to have like STEM classes and things like that. And so I'm excited. He's going to be around diverse people, and they're all about equality and inclusiveness. So I'm happy.
Yeah, that's super important. And I was part of a co-op when we first started, and it was, I did it for a year, but we were the only Latino family, the only people of color, and you know, it was sometimes uncomfortable, even some of the talks about politics in there. And and it was a faith-based co-op, but even in that faith-based co-op, I couldn't believe, you know, some of the things that were spoken about. But yeah, we decided to leave that, and we found a more inclusive, diverse community as well. I mean, my goal was one day to start a Latino co-op, but I'm so busy with other things that I can't be a starter. I'm just gonna join in into somebody else's co-op right now. But that's amazing. I'm glad you guys found community, because whenever people say, how do you get your kids socialized? It's not socialized. I try to correct that. It's really finding community, because our children are social. I mean, they're social with us. I mean, you know, they're social with, and sometimes it might not be with somebody who is their age, somebody in their peer group, but they are social. So it's like, I want to break away from that word of socialization. I really want to thank both of you for spending this time with me to talk about your children, your families, and your experiences. Before we conclude our conversation, I do want to ask you guys, like what goals, what do you want? Do you have like actually 2 questions. One of them is, the first one is like, what's the craziest, coolest thing that out of like that you would never think of, lesson that you ever gave your kid? Like it could have been like maybe putting gas in the car was a lesson, or something that you said, okay, that's a lesson in itself. Anything cool. And then the other one, like, what goals do you have for this year, for 2024, in when it comes to homeschooling? So I'll start with you, Araceli.
Okay. So the biggest, craziest lesson I think is teaching him entrepreneur skills because like I said before, you don't see a lot of kids with business skills and all that, coming right out of school. So he actually has his own little business in the neighborhood, and I advertise it in the neighborhood Facebook group, and it's a pet sitting, and he also does the trash can. Sometimes people go on holiday in my neighborhood. We have a lot of people that are retired, and they spend some time here, and then they have like another house somewhere else, and so they go there for the rest of the week, or they just commute back and forth. And so they'll be like, hey, can Johnny pull up my trash can, or can you pull it down tomorrow morning and then pull it back up? And when people go on holiday here, like he was very busy for the Christmas time frame, pet sitting. Like, so he'll go and he'll let the dog out, and he'll let feed the cats, and so it's and that's teaching him business, and it's teaching him how to work hard and work for his money and be proud of his accomplishments, be proud of himself for earning that money. And I think that is probably like maybe like the craziest thing that I've taught him so far, because I really want him to be in that business mindset, because that's I don't think that in our community that is enforced a lot. We just think about, oh, you're graduated, you can go work construction, go work whatever. You can be a stay-at-home mom, I think that's pushed a lot on the Latino community still. And I'm really trying to push for, no, you got to think outside the box. You got to, be a businessman. And, and he tells me all the time, he's like, Mom, I'm going to be a billionaire, and I'm going to have my own YouTube channel, and I'm going to do, and I'm like, yes, I believe in you. Like, you can do whatever you want. So I really try to push that, business mindset on him. And I think for this year, what we're really focusing on is cultural lessons. And I want to start world schooling him. Like, we're taking a holiday later this month, going into February, and we're going to go to Mexico, which he's already so excited about, because we're going to visit a Mayan village, and he's excited to learn about his roots and his culture and where he comes from. And it's going to be such a beautiful experience for him, that a lot of people don't get to do, a lot of kids don't get to do. And I actually learned about world schooling from the Latino homeschooling, because one of the other moms does it. I can't remember who it was, but I was like, oh my gosh, like I never heard of that. That's really interesting. I love the concept, so I want to start implementing that. And they're going to learn so much with the world and different places and different histories, and I love the idea. So that's something that we're going to be working on this year.
That sounds cool. How about you, Nicolette?
The thing I was most surprised, I am, as we know, very passionate about plants. And around Los Angeles, they do something called topping the trees. I'm assuming they do it also in Chicago and Texas, but basically they just like chop those trees to nubs, like once a year. And it's called topping, and it's incredibly bad for the trees, but landscapers get to come back every single year and chop your trees. And so it's more of a money-making thing than a plant health thing. And we were driving out of our apartment complex, and there are some eucalyptus trees we passed by, and I hear my kid in the back go, oh, Mom, I thought you said that you were going to talk to the people about not cutting the trees. And I said, oh, those trees, they're not a part of where we live. I did talk to our committee. I got on the landscaping committee. I made sure I talked to everybody. I had my resources, and I shared why we shouldn't do this and what we could do instead. And immediately spits back, well, because your voice is important. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like wisdom, and it is 8:30 in the morning.
I
And
must
like for me,
stop.
I had a very traumatic childhood. And so where I didn't feel like my voice was important. So to have my kid in the back of my seat acknowledging that my voice is important, and I did all these things to show it was important, I'm just like, yes, my voice is important. And it was so great, because then they go, and my voice is important. I'm like, yes, your voice is so important. And that was just something that just like they connected those dots together, and it was so like for me it was healing, and for them I'm like, you won't need this healing, it is just going to be the norm for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that was really really big. Another big one is apologizing. Like for me to apologize to my kid, like I was never apologized to my parents at all when I was a kid, never ever. But my dad still to this day never ever. um and like there was one time where they had like hit their dad and like ran to me, and when they know they do something that they shouldn't do, like to help them cope, they ask for a hug. And this time I was just like, I will give you a hug after you apologize to your dad. And it was just like, that doesn't feel right, I don't like that. And so like, 5 minutes after, I went back to them and I said, I'm sorry. Like when you ask for a hug, you always deserve a hug. You can give me a hug and you can still apologize. Like that's not preventing you from apologizing. And so like that was a big thing, like for me to learn, but also for them to learn. Like they can ask for love and affection and should get it. And that will help them to be able to understand and to help the other person that they may have hurt or may have had a misunderstanding for. And so that's been really great to see, like with their friends and stuff, that they are starting to model that, and it's amazing to see that. Our goal this year is we are moving this year out of Los Angeles, which is going to be wild. Yeah, my spouse has been here for 11, 12 years, and then I've been here for 11 years this year. And we just can't, my spouse, he works from home, and we got the clear that we can move anywhere in California. So that's what we're going for. He only needs to be in the office like once a quarter. So we're just going to come down and it not be a big deal. And so we're looking at moving to Humboldt County, which is in Northern California, like by the ocean where the redwoods are. And that's actually where I grew up going camping with my grandparents. So it's always been a special area to me. And we went camping there this summer. And it was just like, why don't we just move here? Like, why do we need to be in the city? We don't go out in the city. We're very much homebodies because we know it's so busy because it's the city. It's also just so expensive here. And so just our goal is just to go with the flow. And my kid is, getting older, and they like their friends. They have best friends that they can name them all. And their co-op is also really great because like they have people who leave and who come back or who just leave, and they all do a goodbye song, and they talk about how we still are can be friends and still like honoring the time we had together. And so for my kid, like I know it's going to be hard for them because like they're getting older, and they're like, wait, like we've talked about it because we've already moved twice, like apartment wise, since they've been born, but they don't remember the first one. And so like I had talked too early, I talked about us moving, and it was instantly like, this is our home, we can't leave. And I was like, babe, we rent, like we will move, and like this was our home for this time, and our home is when we're together. And so them being able to learn, obviously it's a hard lesson to learn, but being able to like leave everything that they know, but also everything that we know is going to be very new for all of us. So just being able to go with the flow and like grieve when we all need to grieve, and support each other and listen to each other. But also be able to explore a new place and find new people, and we can have those bittersweet moments of like, well, I miss these people and this song and this routine. And I'm like, yeah, I hear that, but we don't know what new things we're going to learn, and we can always share what we learned there in our new place. But also we can always come back here. Like Papa, he still works here, so it's the pro of that.
Yeah, and you'll probably find I'm sure you'll find another community over there, like a like-minded community, or you could start your own, since it seems like
Yes,
your own.
exactly. Yeah, they actually have, it is a charter school, but it's an outdoor K through 12 multi-aged school. And so, which looks amazing. And so our plan was to go in and check it out. Our kid is definitely a more social kid. But it's just the fact that like I didn't even know that that existed. And so like that's so cool. And just the people who like that's important. Like once you find people who are in that umbrella of things that you feel safe with, I'm like, oh, I can breathe. Like for me, I'm like, are you like a secular group? Are you like a decolonizing group? And it's just like I know how much to invest if they're not or if they are. And so I just like I already feel like because here in Los Angeles, there's an amazing group called Homeschooling LA, and they do park days every single Friday at a Griffith Park. But they also have like book clubs. They do teen drop-offs. They have a prom, which is amazing, and they do a little like graduation for the kids. And so it's like I know that there's no community like that because that's just so big. But just the fact that I know and was a part of something like that, like makes like I have things that I can now take to where I go and can implement. Or even just to share those ideas with other people who don't think that that's even possible. As I'm looking forward to that, is being able to take what we have with us and just go with the flow.
Yeah, I saw an ad for the prom, I think, and it was huge, the website. I'm like, wow, like that would
Yeah.
be, I mean, there's things that are starting to happen here as well with the middle school. I mean, because my kids, most of their friends go to school and they're already starting to go homecoming and everything. So that's when they feel they're being left out. So,
Yes.
yeah, but that's amazing. But yeah, my craziest lesson, I really, one of them lately that I've been so busy, so I subscribed to one of those meal services, and I said, there you go, follow instructions. I told my oldest girls, this is the lesson, so get to cooking, and that's what they did. That's lately. And also, since I'm, Latinos Homeschooling is a nonprofit organization, and a lot of my work has to do with networking. So my middle child has gone with me to events and networking events, and she's witnessed me pass out my business card and give some presentations. I did some outreach in the libraries, and I just had my daughter do the projector for me. And I mean, that's a lesson on its own. So, and like you, Araceli, my goal for this year is to travel more. We did a few road trips last year that my kids really enjoyed. We've been to Mexico a few times, but they never, this year was an opportunity to travel northeast and also to travel to other parts of the country. So I have to really plan that out. My husband and I actually sat down and actually planned some of the trips we want to take this year and how we're gonna do it. And I keep on telling him our conversation isn't over about this. We need to continue. Yeah. But I wish both of you a really great year, 2024. I know this isn't the last time we're gonna talk. I thank you so much for being here today with me and telling me your story and sharing it with the community, because it's a big encouragement for women who are starting to homeschool to see people like us as experts, like both of you who are leaders in this movement as well. So it's really important to see our faces on this. So Araceli, please keep on writing those books, and Nicolette, I hope you write something about nature and everything, because we want to see
A
face.
guide.
Yeah,
I do actually, I have two projects right now. I'm currently working on a native plant bingo game that uses the indigenous names of the West. And then on the back, it'll have like the information on it. And secondly, I am a co-editor and co-writer on a blog that is going to be a book, which is currently titled Field Trips for All of Us, with my friend Peter Kindfeld. And I will happily send you the link to that. But every week we do a new field trip,
okay.
which is just for adults and kids, like your kids, or for like a co-op. Like we've done one on snow. This one we just did mud, and we tied in the water cycle. But it not only like discusses those things, but it does it through like follow your kids' interest. And also here's that like scientific context that you can put into that interest. And he has his PhD, and so he comes with all of the like heavy science and math and physics and everything, and then I'm in charge of making it like readable, as well as I bring in an indigenous lens for it as well as being like a younger parent. And so that's been a lot of fun, being able to edit and write in a way that's not like for school.
Yeah, please send me the link so I can share it on this channel. And I want to see it too, because I need that help as well.
Yeah.
Yes, no, we have so many.
Well, thank you guys so much. Enjoy your week, your weekend. It's a holiday on Monday, so enjoy it, and stay safe. We'll be in touch. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Take care.